Welcome back, everybody, and thank you again for tuning in to our Through the Bible project. Today we're looking at Genesis 42, 43, 44, and 45. So it's a lot. It all starts now. Being sold into slavery, becoming a leader in Potiphar's house, getting falsely accused of rape, thrown in jail, now being exalted to basically second in command in all of Egypt. What an amazing story. But it's not done yet. In these chapters, we're going to look at what happens when Joseph gets reunited with the brothers that sold him out. January 16th today. We are just about done the whole entire book of Genesis, which I never thought was going to happen. So awesome, and if you've been tuning in, congratulations. And I love how the book ends with this really heartwarming story of Joseph being reunited with his brothers. But it's not easy. It's actually a test. Now that Joseph is premier leader in Egypt, other than Pharaoh or next to Pharaoh, when his brothers come in, he needs to really see whether or not their faith, their hearts have changed. Like we were talking about yesterday, there's a famine in the land, and it's 7 years of feast and then 7 years of famine. We're only a couple years into this famine part, and we're realizing right now that even Jacob's family is beginning to suffer in Canaan. The story kind of starts out kind of funny because Jacob's looking around at all the guys and he's like, well, what are you guys looking at each other here for? What are you looking at me for? Why don't you go out and find some food so we don't die? So I want you to go to Egypt. Go to Egypt, get some food, or we're gonna die. I mean, it was seriously bad. 10 of the brothers lace up their camels and donkeys and they head on out to Egypt. Now, only 10. Remember, there was 12 brothers all included. Joseph, one already being in Egypt, and 2 was Benjamin. But his dad wouldn't let Benjamin go. Why? It's pretty simple. Benjamin and Joseph were the only 2 children born to Rachel. Rachel was the one he really loved. So they were special, and no doubt. One kid doesn't return one day, why would you want to send the other one out? They get there, they get to Egypt, and Joseph is the one who's dealing out all the food. So they see Joseph, but they don't see Joseph. You know what I mean? Joseph looks entirely different. He looks probably even Egyptian, right? But Joseph sees them and he knows them. And so when he starts talking to them, he's got a little plan in mind. He starts freaking them out, right? Like, what are you guys doing here? Where are you from? Who's your father? My East Coast friends would find that kind of funny. Who's your father now? Where are you from? What part of the island are you from, boy? So anyway, yeah, who's your father? Where are you from? Why are you here? And then he falsely accuses them of being spies. Right away, these boys are dropping bombs in the undies because they are at his mercy completely. There's barely any food left. They're in a worldwide famine. They need this guy to be favorable towards them, and he is completely not. He starts speaking to them and he starts kind of asking some questions. Is this all the brothers you have? They're like, no, we have 12 brothers, one's at home and one's perished. They don't really know what's happened to Joseph at all. For all they've come to understand, there's nothing more of Joseph. I mean, there could be, but their narrative has been so long that he's perished in the wilderness that maybe they've even started believing that themselves. If you ever seen somebody that has dramatically offended you, you get that weird feeling in the pit of your stomach. How do I address this? How do I know that they've changed? How do I go back to being in a relationship with these people? I don't know. Sometimes you're looking for people to actually be repentant, right? If they're repentant, then perhaps we can, have fellowship again. If they've changed their heart and they've changed their mind, well, then how do you know? Well, everything about them has changed. Their hearts changed, their attitudes changed, and you can tell. And I think this is what Joseph is doing, is to see whether or not through the course of time, with Joseph not there, how it's impacted their father, how it's impacted their lives, how the Lord has been speaking to their hearts maybe. He's wondering if they have changed. So yeah, he says, I think you guys are spies. I think you've come here to check out the land and see its nakedness, and now you're gonna go back and now we're in trouble. So I don't know even about giving you grain, let alone letting you leave here. So he says, you're saying that you had a younger brother. Now here's the deal. To prove that you're not spies, I'm gonna keep one of you behind. And next time you come, I want you to bring that younger brother of yours. You know, it's at this moment of absolute terror in their hearts that they realize that perhaps the Lord might be punishing them or testing them because of what they did to their brother Joseph. Reuben was the one who tried to save Joseph, who tried to talk him out of killing him. And he did good at that. But while he was out there with the sheep, the brothers sold him off. So Reuben says, I told you we shouldn't have done this. Now his blood's coming back on us. Now we're toast. We should know better. You know, the whole reap what you sow business. So it's interesting. There was this point when the boys were talking about what they had done to their brother. And they're speaking in their own language, and they didn't realize that Joseph could understand their language. So Joseph hears them, and he understands fully what's going on. And it's in this moment that I think that Joseph begins to see the first signs of their hearts changing and their hearts softening, and them taking responsibility, at least mentally, consciously, of what they did. They do sound like they feel guilty, or at least they do know that they're guilty of something incredibly wrong. So they leave Simeon there. They get their bags of grain and they head back home. Not knowing, however, that Joseph's servants had kept their money in their bags. Now, this freaks them out even more. They get a little ways down the road and they start to feed their donkeys and they realize, oh no, we got all this money left over in our bags. I mean, it doesn't look like they took a dime. You know what they could do if they came on us right now? They could say that we stole it. So we'd be like spies and we'd be thieves and Simeon would be dead. Oh, this is so bad. So of course they get back home and they talk to Jacob, and Jacob's like, how was the trip? And they're like, not so good. And like, well, what do you mean? Where's Simeon? Yeah, we gotta talk about something. And they give him the whole story. And of course Jacob's just like, I can't believe this. Like, your brother's in jail, and then you want me to send, like Pharaoh wants me to send my youngest son over to him? And like, he's probably gonna die too. So, you know, one son's dead, the other one's in jail, the other one needs to go back. Oh my goodness, you gotta be joking. And it's at this point that Jacob actually says, you know what? Ben's not going with you. Nope. We're gonna cut our losses right there. Poor Simeon. Oh, he says, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If any calamity should befall him along the way in which you go, then you will bring down my gray hair with sorrow to the grave. I can't handle the thought of Benjamin dying in the wilderness, especially after Joseph. You know what? Simeon just better get used to being bunked up with Butch over there, because it ain't happening. I don't think anybody wanted to talk about it for a while. The narrative kind of continues on and you realize it's a while until they go back. So yeah, time goes on. They eat everything that they were given. And then there becomes this awkwardness, like, okay, we're running out of food. We got to go back. But if we go back without Ben, there's no way we're getting food. And Dad doesn't want us to leave with Ben. We're hooped, man. We're gonna die out here. So interestingly enough, remember the guy that was most against Joseph? His name was Judah. Judah actually speaks up here and he takes some responsibility. If I don't bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. That right there signals a big change of heart, which is cold comfort to Jacob, but it'll be good news to Joseph. Jacob's like, I got no choice. All right, you gotta go. Take him with you. Take double money with you too. So like when you get there, they can't accuse you of stealing. So when they get to Pharaoh's house, they're like, okay, hi, remember us? This is our brother. So, okay, we've come with our younger brothers so we can get our older brother. And, you know, just so you know, when we left here last time, it looked like nobody had taken our money and they put it back in our sacks, but we didn't steal it. So we brought twice as much money this time, okay? So just so you know. And the weird thing is the servant said, oh no, I got paid. Again, they're like, what's going on? So is it Joseph being willing now to bless his family? I mean, the first time he's seen their heart change and he sent them back with the money. Joseph's heart is amazing. And you're going to see a little bit more, and I'm going to add to this, but for somebody being sold into slavery by the brothers that were going to kill them or kill him, he is incredibly soft. Now, when Joseph had lifted his eyes up and he's seen his brother, and they all laid themselves down before him, it was too much for Joseph to handle. He's seen Benjamin, he's seen all the brothers there, he's seen them bowing down before him. It was just too much. He had to go, and he just lost it. He got emotional. He had to go and just let it out somewhere, get himself together and come back. He couldn't deal with it. Joseph accepts them this time, has them come on in, takes their gifts, right? Takes their money and invites them all to dinner. And I guess he let Simeon out of jail, let him come and sit. And he sets a banquet before them. And he starts lavishing these gifts upon Benjamin. And I guess even through doing that, like his father, Jacob, lavished blessings upon Joseph, and the brothers got jealous. And in a way, I think this is another form of testing that Joseph is doing to his brothers. When I lavish gifts upon their younger brother, me being the authority in Egypt, giving 5 times as much food and 5 times as much, everything else to Benjamin, how are they going to react? Well, the brothers didn't even flinch. It's like they've come to accept that this is the reality. And in Joseph's mind, I think that was a major sign of repentance. The testing isn't over. So after the meal, it's time to go back home. But there's one little thing that Joseph wants to do. So he tells the head steward of his household, okay, fill up their sacks. Okay, do that, give them the grain, but put my silver cup in Benjamin's sack. And then they let the boys go down the road a bit. And then they send an entourage out to accost them on the way. So when you get them and you overtake them and you open up the sacks and you see my silver cup in there, say, what do you guys think you're doing? You're stealing my stuff? Why are you repaying us evil for good? And of course, this is taking them all off guard. They don't know what to think again. This is another weird twist in the whole story. So long story short, this is what ends up happening. They get drugged back to the palace, and Joseph's there to confront them, right? And they're dropping bricks, man. They are terrified of what's going to go on. And then the big reveal. Joseph then kind of breaks down and starts speaking to them and starts saying, don't you know who I am? I'm Joseph. And they didn't even know, like, you're Joseph? I'm Joseph. I'm your brother. Remember the one you sold into slavery? And they're looking at each other like, oh my goodness, is this even happening? Joseph, with all the power and the authority in Egypt, could have had each and every one of those boys strung up to die, but he didn't. And what he did was the definition of mercy. And not only just mercy, in the midst of their confusion about what's going on and their fear that they're going to be all of a sudden lynched and killed and drugged and buried in a shallow grave somewhere, Joseph tells them not to worry. And here's why. And there's so much wisdom in this. This is absolutely an incredible statement. And he says, don't worry, I'm not going to kill you. But understand this, the Lord sent me to Egypt. Although what you meant for evil, the Lord actually used for good and to help thousands, if not millions of people. When you brought me into captivity, that was all God's plan. It was a plan to save you. Whoa, think about that. Look at what Israel had done to Jesus. Look at what the Jews had done to Jesus. They crucified him, and he let them do that. But what they meant for evil, what God had in mind was to save everyone who would believe in him from that point on. It was God who intended good to come out of this evil. If they had not crucified Jesus in the way that they did, Jesus would never have died and rose again from the dead and shown everybody that he is the Messiah. You see, it was destiny to happen. It was destined to happen. It was predestined to happen. See, God is at work doing things far beyond what we are capable of understanding. Even our sin. God, you know what? Even uses our sin to help people down the road. Can you even get that? Can you wrap your mind around that kind of power, that kind of intellect, that kind of wisdom? What man and what the enemy, what the devil means for evil, God can turn around and use for good. And this is what Joseph is saying. Look, the Lord made me second only to Pharaoh in all the land of Egypt. And because he did that, thousands of people have been saved from this famine, including you. Don't be afraid. I understand. My faith is much bigger than our feud, but even still, look at this. Someone's sin brought about or set into motion something in history so important that it would actually lead to the salvation of hundreds of thousands of people. The Jews' sin against their own Messiah has led to the salvation of the human race. What ends up happening next is Pharaoh gets involved. Pharaoh hears that Joseph's brothers have returned. Pharaoh looks so favorably upon his brothers because of Joseph's sake. He says that they can inhabit the best of the land of Egypt. If this isn't the picture of what Jesus does for us, I don't know what is. What Jesus has done is just like what Joseph did. He reaches out to mankind. He says, come and be a part of this kingdom, and the best is for you. And you would be like, why? We don't deserve this. And this is amazing. But all he says is, come. I love you. I've forgiven all of your debt. Just come and let's dwell together again in the best of this land has to offer, and come. And that's what Jesus says, come. The Father says, come. Come into the kingdom. Come into the best that I have to offer. Leave behind what you're living over here and come with me and enjoy. You are the long lost brothers, so to speak, the long lost family of Joseph. But you're the long lost family of God. Would you take that invitation? Would you accept the gift coming from Jesus today? And would you come and return into the house of the Lord? If so, pray. Pray right now. Lord, Father, thank you for loving me so much that you brought your Son into the world and he took all my sin. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your grace. And thank you for the invitation. I take it. I leave off everything. I want to follow you. Show me what I need to do next. In Jesus' name. Thank you again for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. Later.